2024 has had a lot of great releases, but you might be surprised which game I was most excited to try out this year. If you've seen some of my past videos, you'll know that I'm someone that's captivated by emotional stories. For whatever reason, the gacha industry is home to some of the best storytelling imaginable. Heaven Burns Red checks a lot of my boxes for an experience just like that. I was going to make a first impressions video on the game anyways, so when their agency Yostar reached out to me regarding a sponsored video, I agreed based on the confirmation that I will be allowed to make some helpful feedback that could make the game even better. Please know that I typically don't take these dedicated video sponsors unless I really believe in the product. My name is Psyche, and in this video, I'll be sharing my thoughts on the English version of Heaven Burns Red, ultimately answering the question, should you play it? So a little bit of a background check. One of the primary reasons I was heavily anticipating this title is due to the fact that the writing team behind it is someone I'm actually pretty familiar with. The creative aspect for Heaven Burns Red is handled by Key, who, if you don't know, is a very prominent player in the visual novel industry, having the roots going back all the way to the late 1990s. One of its main writers and composer, Jun Maeda, has written some of the best visual novel works you've seen in the past decade: Air, Clannad, Little Busters, and the anime series Angel Beats from 2010. I myself am a big fan of Maeda's works because I have read all of them. I have a combined 90 to 100 hours completing Clannad and Little Busters back when I was still in my college days. These are critically acclaimed as some of the best visual novels of all time, so when I heard that Maeda is finally returning to create a brand new game after 15 years, in charge of both the narrative as well as the music, that got me pretty excited. He himself handles the composition and lyrics of the in-game tracks, even featuring a fictional Japanese band, She Is Legend, formed by the main cast during the story. Developed by Right Flyer Studios and co-developed by Key, Heaven Burns Red is a turn-based RPG and a very story-focused game. You can expect to spend a lot of time learning about its characters and lore. The game originally launched in 2022 in Japan, and you could actually download the Japanese version prior to the English version's launch, but due to the dialogue-heavy nature, a lot of the jokes and its nuances would get lost unless you understood Japanese culture. Even if you knew parts of the language, some of the references and cultural influences just wouldn't make sense to you, which made it one of the biggest barriers for entry if you're not Japanese. However, all that changes now that Heaven Burns Red is finally releasing its English version. Localizing a Japanese game to an overseas audience is hard. Luckily, many of the jokes and references have been reworked to make sense for a non-Japanese audience. The English server of the game is handled by Yostar, a very prominent publisher in the gacha industry, and has brought huge titles such as Azur Lane and Arknights to the global market. Well, what's the game about? Let's talk about it. The story follows Ruka, the tomboyish former vocalist from the legendary band She Is Legend, as she was scouted to join an elite squadron of soldiers that are capable of standing up to a mysterious alien species that have threatened all life forms on Earth, aptly known as the Cancer. Joining forces with Yuki, an expert hacker, Tsukasa, the clueless expert intel, Megumi, the hot-headed psychic, Tama, the short-stouted sailor, and Karen, the innocent-looking one with a sinister alter ego. Forming the Squad 31A, and scouted for their unique talents, they can battle the Cancers by using a mystical weapon that they can call upon known as the Seraph. But being newcomers to the training regime, there's a lot to learn when it comes to leadership, cooperation, and maturity. You can tell that the story takes a more personal side, and Maeda prefers to lean more into the traditional route for writing. The game plays like a day-to-day simulator, as you follow Ruka with her daily life and be in the moment as things unfold in real time. Even these small moments, when running an errand or getting lunch with a squad mate, has their own quirks. You get a session of combat, some story cutscenes, and a free time session where you can do whatever you want within the academy. The early parts of the story is dedicated to introducing the cast one at a time. In Chapter 1, the majority of the runtime builds up 31A's characters as they try to get along and settle their differences. You really get a sense of their unique backgrounds and camaraderie as you get to know their personality. If it's one thing that I think a gacha game story should do well, it's to build a very strong main cast. This joyous day-to-day cycle will last for the majority of Chapter 1, and while it may seem like a light-hearted comedy at first, I assure you, if you read or watched Clannad, Maeda is known for writing some pretty heavy stuff. It's not until Chapter 2 and 3 when things start to get a serious turn, and not everything will be all sunshine and rainbows. At that point, you'll wish for more of the light-hearted stuff. as this game does its utmost hardest to emotionally grip you with its narrative. All the banters and interactions that Ruka has with her squadmates culminate in a strong bond that even you as a player feel attached to. The game has been in service for more than 2 years, and some players even praise it as one of the best stories in the gacha market. The approach that Heaven Burns Red takes in its writing encapsulates a lot of what makes visual novels a great medium. A big build-up for a big payoff. One thing I appreciate a lot is when characters in a gacha game interact with each other, not just to you as the player. It makes the world feel alive instead of coming off as NPCs giving you a quest. The attention to detail within the story is also something I want to note. I know with gacha games it's really hard to do linear storylines, but if you pick certain dialogue choices, the other characters will actually remember that and reference back to it. Almost every line of dialogue is voiced, even the optional cutscenes and chats that you can find within a level that's completely missable. All of this is complemented by the wondrous music that the game has. Key has this really unique way of composing their soundtracks. Running through the main paths of the academy while hearing the light and oddly nostalgic music just makes me go, yep, that's a Key game alright. At certain points in the story, Ruka reforms her original band with the rest of the 31A members. These tracks are original and sometimes even played as combat music during a level. There's even a rhythm game for these tracks tucked away in the menus. Now, 31A is not the only squad within the academy. There are actually 8 in total, all featuring 6 members. This effectively translates to 48 total characters in the whole cast. They can all be found on the academy grounds some of the time, with most of them highlighted later in the story. Though there are plenty of bond events sprinkled throughout that you can engage in. In the Events tab, you can view the side stories that feature the other colorful characters in the cast, all with their fully voice-acted stories and even giving out a free welfare character at the end. The stamina system in this game takes on the form of life points. You get a maximum of 5 and 1 regenerates every 4 hours. Part of me was surprised that you can actually use it to go back to a specific part in the main story and activate any bond events you missed. See, you get a session of free time every day in the main campaign, and while you can either go train at the arena or do activities that raise Ruka's personality traits, you can go back and do a bond event that you forgot or didn't meet the personality requirement for. As a story-focused game, the game actually wants you to revisit these bond events and learn more about the characters, even tying it with how the stamina system works. Now that we've had a taste of what HBR's story has to offer, how does the game play? The gameplay of Heaven Burns Red features turn-based combat. You will form a team of 6 characters in a party, 3 of which will be on field, and you can freely pick which will be the 3 every turn. They are equipped with a normal attack and a set of skills that expand SP points. SP is restored every turn, so you can bring up your backups when the main members are on cooldown. Both you and the enemy have deflector points or DP above the health bar. This is essentially a shield meter. When DP is fully depleted, you will perform a break on the enemy, stunning them and skipping their next attack, but the same can also apply to you. While there are healing skills that can restore DP, generally speaking, healers can only heal DP points and not your health, so it's best to never let it get depleted. Whenever you land enough attacks, you can enter overdrive mode, where all units will get a buff, restore a lot of SP, and give you an extra turn. One major distinction between HBR and other traditional turn-based games is that the meta teams are not ones that you whittle down the enemy turn by turn. Some of the best strategies include biding your time and building up a big turn to finish off the enemy in a single blow. Since there are 48 total characters in the main cast, you will obtain different styles, known as a memoria of a character, that switches up their skills in combat, even more so when you level them up. There are boosters and the 6 accessory slots to gear up each character. You can't use different variants of the same character in the same team, but all the gear you equip on them will carry over to all variants of them, so you won't have to farm them one by one. Apart from spending life points from revisiting bond events, you can also spend them running through dungeons or fighting bosses that will net you XP and resources. You can expend up to all 5 of them to battle the encounter once and gain quintuple the rewards. When battling in the arena, you can even put the game on power saver mode while it auto battles for you in the background. Auto battle does exist when you play normally too, but especially in those difficult story fights, you'll really want to think things through. Let's talk about the gacha now. Now, I won't have the full information for this, as the banners on the test branch may not fully represent the final product. Each pull costs 300 quartz currency. Characters are separated into A, S, and SS rarity. The table of rates are as follows, with SS having a 3% drop rate, which admittedly is on the higher end. There is a spark system at 200 pulls. And while you might be discouraged from this high counter, one aspect of Heaven Burns Red is that except for extremely rare cases, there are no limited characters in the game. You can take your sweet time collecting them all. The game does seem to give out a lot of freebies if you go through the main story because, well, that is the main aspect that makes Heaven Burns Red one of the most unique gacha experiences. Being a big fan of Maeda's works, this is one game I'm personally invested in. If Heaven Burns Red has piqued your interest, make sure to pre-register for the game using the link in the description or pinned comment below. All players will get rewards based on the number of pre-registrations, so if you want a chance to get the SS Memoria, Ruka Kayamori for free, you know what to do. Even if turn-based combat is not your cup of tea, I would still urge people to try it out just for the story and the music. With the backbones of the story held by industry veterans, I myself will be taking the time to read through the story and diving into the lore of Heaven Burns Red. And I hope to see you there as well. Thank you for tuning in to this brief introduction on one of my most anticipated gacha games this year. Let me know what you think of Heaven Burns Red in the comments, or if you will be playing it yourself. Anyways, that's all for me today. Thank you for watching, and as always, have fun out there.